Good morning, Cyber Warriors. In today's video, I'm going to show you two different ways to use PowerShell in order to identify where and what local groups a user is. Taking a look at the screen, we have the Get-LocalGroupMember for the group administrators, and we see that guest is a member of the local administrators group, which is never a good idea. We also have Zorak in here. He's a questionable character. He's only the band leader. Why is he in the administrators group? We'll take a look at that as well. But let's actually look at the more of a security concern, and that's the guest account. So there's a couple of different ways we can do this, right? We can do it manually. We can go into each and every last one of these to identify where they are. But that doesn't make a lot of sense. Let a computer do things in a computer fashion, programmatically, repetitive task repetitively. We're going to do this in ISE because it has several different features that helps us build our for loop here. And since we know that there's a beginning and an ending of the individual lines here that we're going to be working with, the local group, there's a finite number, so we want to do a for each loop, right? So the first thing we're going to do is go right up into here and start it with for each. And we're going to define a variable, local group in, and this is the command, get local group. So what we're trying to do here is we're going to, for each one of the things that is in the local group, we're going to call it the local group variable. And then here we're going to do our squiggly doos. Don't know why I can't spell for each very often, but so we can do the command where it just simply runs it, but we know that there's going to be errors, right? The guest account, the one we're looking for, isn't always in a group, and we don't want to have a whole bunch of red scrolling up on our screen. So if we're taking a look at the remote desktop users, for example, so get local group member group or right click to copy, right click to paste, looking for the member, and we're going to look for guest. Yeah, so we have an error. We know this is going to error, so we want to avoid that error. How do we do that? Well, error action. So we're going to have to do a test to see if there is an error. So we would have to have an if loop in here. So we're going to do if. Once again, we have a command we have to run. So get local group member group, and then we're going to local group. Remember, we defined the variable in up there, and we're looking for the member. There's guest we're looking for, and then we need to define our error action. So error, so it shows that we can actually do something with errors here, right? So error action, and here are the options. Wonderful thing about ISE is it tells you the options for this to go through, right? So we want it to silently continue. All right, so if there is an error, we want it to just do the thing anyway. We now have a squiggly do for here, and this is the end of our if statement. So if it exists, there's no error, what do we want it to do? We want it to tell us the name of the local group, right? So we have local group, and remember, it's the property of the name of the local group that we want. So this is it. That's our for loop, and it will find guest and all the different groups. We run scripts, the stuff in the command pane. How? F5, that's right. So we can see down here, it's administrators and the and guests. Guests is fine. Guests should be in the guest group, but it shouldn't be in the administrator group. So we'll have to take care of that later. But I did tell you I was going to show you two different methods to do this. So this is a simple for loop. Does a little bit of error handling. Has an if loop embedded inside of it. So it's two loops technically. And I'm going to show you how to do it in a single line directly through the PowerShell pipeline. So first thing we have to do is get the local group again, right? Get the local group, and we're going to pipe it into where object, and this is where it's going to get a little tricky here. So we got a squiggly do, we have to start and end, and then inside here we have the command we're going to do. So we have to get local group member. So that's a $sign and an underscore. And what that is the PowerShell pipeline version of the variable that we defined, right? So we're putting the local group, all of those names and the information in the local group, and we're putting that into this portion here. Just like we had defined local group in the for loop previously, the $sign underscore is our local group that's there now. Okay, and again we're looking for the property of .name, right? And so we're going to do if the name equals, and we're just looking for guest, right? Well, the thing about where object, when you're telling it something equals it, it's got to equal it. It's got to be the whole thing. So if we look at the names of the users in here, they're preceded by what? What is this? This is the computer name. Now you can actually define that for this system by actually typing in desktop blah blah blah. You don't want to do that. You want this to be portable. You want it to be able to move to any system out there. To do that, we would define the environmental variable of computer name. This will find where all of the guest accounts are. So, how do we run it again? Oh, yes, okay. See, the output is a little bit different, right? We have the name of the group and the description of the group to go with it because it's pulled out of the entire PowerShell pipeline. So this is the default view for Get-LocalGroup. This is how we put it in there. But what if we now wanted to look at multiple different things and like look for Zorak, right? So we want to define a new variable, user equals Zorak, and we can actually do a couple of changes in here to make this a little more friendly. Match. Right, so this gives it a search string, and we're going to call this user, the variable that we defined above. All right, so hit F5, and now it shows us that Zorak is a member of the administrators group and power users group. Two quick ways to go through and identify the different users within different groups, and with the PowerShell pipeline. And a simple for loop. That's everything for today's video, and I will see you in the next video.